I'm really not looking forward to this review. And to be honest, I think the reason I put off going to review Before the Flood for so long was because I knew that this shit would be next. And my god! This episode is dull. This episode is the one tarnish on Jamie Matheson's status as one of the best writers and one of the most deserving as next showrunner. Seriously, the man who wrote 2 of the best episodes for Series 8 back to back and one of the best Series 10 episodes. But for Series 9, without a doubt his worst episode by far, and one of the worst episodes of Series 9 as a whole. And that's got some steep competition because this series is really inconsistent in its story quality. But the sooner I get this shit over with, I mean, I guess I'm kind of excited to talk about the Zygon 2-parter, but as I'm yet to review a bad Series 9 story, I guess this is a good place to start. Until I have to fucking do it again next review. Ugh, let's just get this over with. This episode's opening is terrible and shows the worst of this show's budget. Wait, haven't I said that before? In 2 ways, where the Doctor says that he's under attack from 4 and a bit space battle fleets, and the most we see of this is some sparks in the TARDIS and the camera shaking. Like, could they seriously not have had some shots of the TARDIS flying to make it not look as cheap? Change the TARDIS lighting? Anything? And the opening also tries to have the tension raised by having it so that there's a creature in Clara's spacesuit, which of course we don't see. Absolutely none of that, because that might have actually been interesting. Prepare for a lot of complaints about how shitty this episode looks, by the way, because the girl who died and the woman who lived are obviously the budget saver episodes for this series. The one thing I do like about this opening and this episode as a whole is Capaldi, because my god! As much as the story really makes you want to die, Capaldi is really good in this episode. He keeps me from fully wanting to toast a bath because of his natural gravitas and his great delivery on certain lines.
It's okay to make ripples, but not tidal waves.
You are a tidal wave.
Don't say that.
I do like that Matheson keeps up his trope of making the Doctor's devices useless for the story, as the TARDIS is too far away and the sonic sunglasses are broken. But where the fuck did all of these Vikings come from? They legit just spawn out of nowhere, and considering they're carrying torches, I find it incredibly hard to believe that neither the Doctor or Clara seen them, or heard them. We're off to a great start already, aren't we? Seriously, Matheson, I thought you were above such contrived Oh. Never mind. Norman, take it away.
But you can't do this to me. I started this company. You know how much I sacrificed?
When we cut back to the village, we get a nice little back and forth between the Doctor and Clara, and we get the Doctor eyeing up Maisie Williams. He then pretends to be Odin in a very comedic fashion, and it was actually going somewhat decently. Until that fucking thing showed up in the sky, and what the fuck? What in the name of sanity is that thing? It looks fucking awful! What is it with this series and its shitty head effects? So Monty Python then sends down some of its shitty looking robots to take the village's strongest warriors, so that he can drink their testosterone to try and make up for his lack of manhood because of the amount of soy he's consumed over the years. Which, soy boy memes aside, is actually an interesting concept by Matheson. It's just a shame that this story puts zero focus on it, and it's never really brought up outside of the first 12 minutes.
Point it at my chains and think the word open.
Why don't you just do that yourself, you fucking idiot? After a really shitty action sequence, we cut back to the Doctor and the village losers. And the Doctor makes a point about gods never actually showing up, which is quite interesting and very true, but the rest of the town just don't argue with it at all, because that would actually lead to something interesting happening in the story. And we can't be having any of that now, can we? Clara was actually doing a really good job of manipulating Monty and leaving in a very Sorry, it's meant to say very intentional, the script says very international. Clara was actually doing a really good job of manipulating Monty into leaving in a very intentional Doctor-like moment, which was very well performed by Jenna Coleman, and it was actually an interesting part of the episode because of how it links to Clara's arc. Until we get part 1 of 14,999,406 of Ashilda being the most unlikable, annoying, useless bitch, where she challenges Monty to a war. What an absolute fucking idiot. If you could have just kept your trap shut, then he would have been gone, and this episode could have focused on something else, you tramp. And it doesn't even make sense that Ashilda is fucking alive! Like, sure, the story uses the excuse that they're alive because they had a bit of the sonic sunglasses. Right. Whatever. I can understand saving Clara for this, though it's still a bit tismy. But Ashilda? Yeah, no. Despite the fact that she was the one holding it, just for stupid reasons as well, it was more than obvious that she was just any other Viking, and that Clara is the one from a different place because of her clothes. Clara even points this out directly to Monty. The entire crux of the plot is built on this stupid, contrived and convenient bullshit moment from Ashilda, and it's just so fucking stupid! By the way, we're not even 15 minutes into the episode yet. You know how truly awful something is if the entire plot is already broken and this contrived 15 minutes in? Even Pirates of the Caribbean 5 wasn't this broken 15 minutes in. And it's Pirates of the Caribbean 5! Everybody gags until you're making Pirates 5 look good. I have a whole video on why Pirates 5 hurt me on a personal level, by the way. You should totally watch it, by the way. So, Vikings, like the fucking morons they are, decide they are gonna fight and die with honor. And I do actually like that the Doctor points out how stupid they're being in the usual Chad 12 way.
I applaud your courage, but I deplore your stupidity.
But I must admit, when he was translating the baby, I thought it was a bit weird. Like, why is he doing it like this? Why can't he just interact with what it's saying like how the 11th Doctor did when he met Melody or Stormageddon? And the way the baby speaks in general is just weird compared to how all the other babies have talked in the past. Especially considering that this is not only a baby, it's a Viking baby. Like, at this point, I'm convinced it's not even a baby. With the way it speaks, it sounds like fucking Shakespeare. So the Doctor starts training the village schizophrenics, and predictably it goes horribly, in a way that probably would have been funny if we could actually see it, but we're just using the Chibnall trope of telling us the interesting things instead of showing us. Everybody gangster until I'm having to compare a Moffat-era story to a Chibnall one. That's how you know this episode sucks. The episode then raises an interesting point about Clara's arc when the Doctor points out that he changed her into a fighter. Something which he seems obviously ashamed of, but this episode seems like it's actively trying to be boring. So Clara completely glosses over it, and there's no hint at this anywhere else until the end of the second part of the story. Fuck my life.
A good death is the best anyone can hope for. Unless you happen to be immortal.
I have a feeling this is foreshadowing.
The one thing I'll give this scene is that it sets up the Doctor's duty of care standpoint being a negative that distracts him too much. Quite well, but fucking hell, they could have done so much more in this scene, but they just don't. Two interesting angles of this arc are brought up, and one of them is completely glossed over, and the other one is just mentioned so briefly that it might as well have not even been brought up at all. The Doctor then walks in on Ashilda being cringe, and at this point I might as well bring up Wazy Milliams. Yeah. I might as well bring up Wazy Millions' performance of this character, because this isn't the worst that the character gets, but that doesn't mean that it's the best either, because fucking hell, in this episode, she's so fucking bland. Wazy Milliams brings nothing to this character at all. Not that there was really anything to work with, but her performance is so boring throughout. I honestly question why I'm even meant to care when she dies in the end. And she takes up that much screen time that it leaves no room for the other characters to get any real development outside of one of them being a pussy and the other one being a crane. That's it! Ashilda then spits a lot of dialogue at the Doctor that's meant to be taken as deep, but it's so broad and poorly defined that anyone could say things like this. The boys said you were just a girl. Sorry, to all 0 of the women who watch my videos, when you were in primary school, have you ever had a boy say that you're just a girl? Probably, because schoolboys are fucking stupid. I probably said something like that myself when I was a dumbass kid. So the Doctor finally figures out a plan involving electric eels. I would complain about how this makes literally 0 sense that the electric eels are here, but this episode's plot is already that contrived, convenient, poorly thought out and rushed that honestly I'm beyond caring at this point. Seriously, another 15 minutes into this episode since the main plot was actually set up, and next to nothing has happened. But there's still been loads to complain about. Sounds like a Chibnall era episode. After a little montage of preparing the fight, the Maya and Monty Python teleport down in their usual shitty fashion, and the absolutely absurd destruction of the robots begin, and this is just... ugh. So the eels, while attached to a wire that goes all the way along to the barn and electrocutes the robots. I'd assume that this wire is from the TARDIS because this is Viking time and wire wasn't fucking invented, but it was stated earlier that they were on a longboat for 2 days.
I do have a plan.
Yeah, so you keep saying, for 2 days on a longboat.
Where the fuck did this wire come from? And there's so much of it as well. And you know how I was talking about how contrived everything is earlier? Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet, fucko! These useless bland tin robots fucks, for some reason, don't shoot at a single person this entire time. One of the random helmets can control all of the rest of the Maya's vision, because of course it can. Odin is reduced into a generic shouty classical villain 1-2-3, despite the fact he was built up to be an interesting villain earlier. Genuinely, what the fuck is any of this? I've watched this scene 3 times back to back and I'm still clueless as to anything of what's just happened. The Doctor then threatens to upload the video of Monty Python to Reddit and farm all the karma in the galaxy so that he has no threat anymore, and then sends him away. And then, for some reason, Shilda's dead. No explanation is given as to how this happened. It just did. She's dead. And honestly, I haven't got a clue why I'm meant to care. The only people I feel sorry for are Peter Capaldi and Jenna Coleman, because they probably know how fucking dumb that entire scenario was. And my god, it gets even worse. Before I start complaining, the closest thing I have up to a positive about this scene is that it can sort of act as a subtle point in the direction that 12 is becoming unstable. Something that is shown the most in Heaven Sent and Hell Bent, and even some of Face the Raven. But this moment, I'm just gonna be honest, it's so shit. Like, the Doctor chose his face to remind himself to save people, as if he hasn't been doing that by default for fucking hundreds upon hundreds of years. Even at his lowest points, even the most distant incarnations still save people. I mean, I appreciate the tie into Fires of Pompeii, because that episode is a masterpiece, but still, there's a huge difference between the Doctor saving someone in both these stories. In the Fires of Pompeii, the entire point of the story is to show the burden of a Time Lord, not fully being able to interfere, and throughout the whole story we see him and Donna clash about this, and it's something that's clearly took a toll on him, as it crops up later, excellently when Ted goes on his downward spiral. And he saves a person there because Donna begged him to, not only because it's the right thing to do, but it will help him morally so much. Which it does.
You were right. Sometimes I need someone. Welcome aboard.
And that little scene alone is payoff for a lot of Ted's character being in denial of needing someone. Even though he clearly does. But here, the Doctor can interfere. He's already saved pretty much everyone he can. The death of Ashilda wasn't his fault, because who could have predicted something that stupid? And if he could have, he would have just worn the helmet himself. There's nothing special about Ashilda that means she's the one who has to wear it. This moment just sort of comes out of nowhere as an excuse to have the next story revolve around Ashilda being immortal. Which is pain. But we'll get to that in the next review. Also, wouldn't you think that the Doctor not knowing why he chose his face would have been resolved in the Series 8 finale? You know, when the Doctor figures out who he is? It would link in a lot better there than it does here. And it really is a shame this moment is so poor, because Capaldi is really trying his best, but he just can't salvage this shit. The Doctor then irresponsibly makes Ashilda immortal because he pretty much felt like it. I mean, he does admit that this was a mistake in the end of the episode, but the fact that he still does it is actually insane. That he would make someone immortal on purpose, considering how much pain and suffering was caused by the last immortal person he knew, and he knows the burden of living so long because he's practically immortal himself. Even if it does link into the unstable nature of 12 the series was going for sometimes, this moment was just straight up wrong. I mean, he even gives a great speech about immortality in the next scene.
But Ashilda isn't just human anymore. A little piece of alien inside her, so in a way she's a hybrid.
Oh no. No. So, that was the girl who died, and my god, what an absolute disappointment this episode is. Seriously, this is not only one of the worst episodes of the series, but it's one of the worst Capaldi episodes ever, and excluding Chris Chibnall's era, it's one of the worst new episodes, and fucking hell, it may be even one of the worst episodes in the show's history. Seriously, the amount of contrived, convenience, nonsense bullshit that happens in this episode is absolutely ludicrous and beyond the realms of comprehension. The plot is absolutely broken. It fails almost the second it's introduced. The characters are shit. Most of them don't even have personalities, and the one who is given the most attention is just irritating, while also being a blank slate. A terrible combination for sure. While the Doctor is pretty great in this episode because of Capaldi, despite a few really stupid decisions he makes, he's still fine here. While Clara barely gets anything to do, and the story could function almost exactly the same without her in it. The few interesting aspects of this episode are completely glossed over so quickly that they become forgettable the second they're over. The effects are awful, the villain is an absolute joke, he's made up to be a super threatening villain with an interesting plan only to have the interesting part shattered by forgetting about it the second it's over, and then having it made into a complete joke later on. Making this one of the worst Doctor Who episodes ever made. And the second part is even fucking worse. I know it's like more apparent with this one than the Before the Flood review, but I'm still ill. That's why my delivery is just, it's been a bit tismy, but like, you know, I enjoy making reviews, and I'm currently in my 3-month grace period where I get to work on only reviews, and I like doing it, and I don't always get the opportunity to film, so if I do get the opportunity to film, I'm gonna take it, even if I'm fucking sick. But hopefully, the editing and overall script of this video will make up for that. I will hope that I'm not ill by the next time I record. Goodbye.